Fantastic. Well, it is 9 a.m. So I am going to get us kicked off and started. So excited. And for those of you that have been on a little while, you've kind of heard that being in the public eye is not my favorite thing. My friend Erin, I hide behind her a lot because she is so incredible at it. But I appreciate that she has shared the opportunity for me to get on here today with my friend Anna and have a conversation with you about those awkward talks. We want to be able to put ourselves forward and really talk through that. So I think the first thing I want to do to make sure our chat is working is, what does everybody think about the weather in Minnesota right now?
Or if you're not in Minnesota, do you have any opinions on Minnesota weather that we need to know about?
Oh, good one, Anna.
Do you hate how we talk about the weather? Could be one opinion.
Oh, it could be, because we do talk about the weather, don't we, Anna? Okay, so it
I'm
looks like
loving
we're
this.
all
We're getting everything from t-shirt vibes from people in Ohio to we've got people thinking warmer is better. It seems like we've only got one person that's thinking that they're missing a little bit of winter time, but I think otherwise the verdict is in. We're ready for muddy paws and t-shirt weather.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well, our chat is working. Want to make sure of that because chat is going to be a very important part of this talk this week. And with me today, I want to introduce, and I'm actually going to let Anna introduce herself, but I can tell you I have known her for a short while now, but I can tell you she is a pretty incredible, insightful leader, and I will kick it over to her to do a little introduction of herself right now.
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm still Anna Nielsen. If you didn't know that by now, we're in trouble. Anyway, good morning and welcome. So excited to have you here to talk about how to get over these awkward conversations, how to start them, how to work through them, and maybe even how to finish them if we get to that. So I will not give you a big bio. You can find me on the World Wide Web, but I do quite a bit of writing on LinkedIn if you want to check me out there. But I will share that I'm on a mission to just help people, teams, and organizations create conflict resilience. And I want people to think about these skills as things that are actually strategic and drive productivity and wellness inside organizations. So aside from that, let's see, I like improv, paddleboarding, high fives, and meeting you. So I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Becky.
Nice. I'll have to remember that high five thing when I see you in person the next time.
Awesome.
Fantastic. And then the other voice that you'll be hearing is the voice of the chat, which is my friend Erin Hargrove today, because she's going to be helping us monitor that as we go along. So as we get into it here, we'll talk about our rules of engagement. The first one is it is a public session. We will record it and it will be posted on Lakeside HR Group and Conflict Capable Solutions website. And then the other thing is each of you will have access to the recording and the deck and any links that get referenced as well throughout this chat. We want you to make sure that you use all the features of Teams. So if you're feeling love, let's see a heart. If you're feeling a hand clap, let's see a hand clap. And if you want to put it in chat, just put it in there so that everybody can see it. Oh, I love it. We're already seeing hearts and claps. And then we encourage a lot of positive discussion here. We really want people to be genuine. We want you to show up as curious. The more questions that we get and the more comments that we get, it makes this chat exactly what we want it to be, very interactive and very purposeful for everybody who joins it. And then many times there are no right answers. That's a key thing. A lot of what we're giving are our opinions and some of our trusted ways that we handle those awkward conversations. So, but keep in mind, there's no right answer. So if you've got an answer that sounds different or you want to share it with everyone, please drop that in the chat. And then the goal is information sharing and conversation starting. So we're hoping that by us having this conversation with you today, it helps you either with a conversation you need to have, or you pull from this at some point and or you're able to share it with someone else. So that's kind of our rules of engagement as we get started. So this was a really fun topic for me. And one of the things that I thought about is I was like, awkward conversations. There's conflict, we talk about negotiation, we talk about all these different ways that we communicate and things can get awkward in the conversation. But one of the things that I thought about was there's really this kind of fun six for me personally. And it starts with the first big one. I see you laughing, Anna, because trust me, I'm really good at this first one. The first and the last one are actually, I am probably a master at each of these. And the first one is the foot in the mouth. That opportune time, when you say something that was totally inappropriate or way off base. Have you ever been there, Anna?
A few times, yes. I have made some very awkward jokes at very awkward times. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And then the one that is really tough for me is that silence breaker. And when it really hits for me is when I'm doing the big group activities and you're at a table with someone that you don't know and they say, hey, answer this question and then come back and tell the group what you learned. This one is always really, really tough because sometimes I then leap into number 3, which is the over-explainer. The two can go hand in hand.
Right. We're just wired to want to fill the silence. And I think that'll come up today for sure as we talk about some strategies is people will find that they see that in themselves a lot.
Absolutely. And then I think it's the accidental confession. Oops, I said that. I didn't mean to. I wasn't supposed to tell you that. I've seen this happen a lot in the workplace, and it's usually pretty innocent. You're working on a project. It was supposed to be top secret. You were told it was top secret, and you let the cat out of the bag before you were supposed to. And I know I've definitely been there several times. And then technology fail. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Funny story. Oh, I know, right? We
just went through this.
Yes, we did. So it's so funny. A funny story on this one is, when we all first started learning the online, one of the things that people picked up automatically without anything being sent around telling people how to do this was how to screenshot the face of the person that was frozen. And, I think of all the technical things that we do and people like, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I need to figure that out. We learned really quickly how to screenshot a team's face that was frozen. And I was a funny meme a few times with frozen faces. So.
That's great.
Good thing I have a good sense of humor. And then my final fun six for me personally is the name Forgotten. And I can do it mid-sentence. I have 2 sons, and I can easily, very quickly call one son the other one's name. And they're my sons. So it's so interesting
that's deep.
How that happens.
Yeah. The worst part about being a name forgetter, if you are one, or this is something that happens to you, is when you need to introduce someone to someone else. So then you have to say who you have to find a way around it. So it's like, this is my friend from wherever, or this person's in this group with me, or this is my colleague and this, or whatever, and wait for someone else to fix it. So that'll happen.
Oh, goodness. So true. Well, those are my fun six. Those are my fun six. So Anna, in the work that you do, what are some that you can think of that I'm sure I've left off this list?
Yeah, I think the number one is how to start a long overdue, difficult conversation or awkward conversation. So I think that we should chat about that just a little bit, because so often we just let ourselves stay stuck or stay silent. And so what I'd like to do for you all, new friends, is talk through a few ideas about how to do this. So one of the things that I think can be a really big mindset shift around hard conversations in general is that no matter if you're kind of caught off guard and someone catches you in a moment and you have to have a hard conversation like right now, or if you have time to plan for a hard conversation, if you can have the mindset that in every conversation you're having, you're just trying to build momentum. So you want to identify what it is you do want to happen, not just in that conversation, but in your relationships or on your team or in your organization or for this project or for your own growth, whatever it is that drives you to bring that energy that creates momentum with people. That's the first thing you can do in your mindset that will help people receive you differently, because your body language is going to change. Things are going to shift when someone can see that you're not just there to replay old tape. How many of you, I'd love to see some reactions in the chat. How many of you have started a hard conversation with someone, and it seems like all you're doing is spinning and spinning and replaying and rehashing whatever already happened? Anyone have that experience over and over again? Yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up here. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. Yes. So this is a really common thing, right, Becky? Like you get into a conversation, you finally work up the gusto to do it, and now you've been there for 2 hours just talking about how this person stole your bike when you were 5. And, here I am at 46, wondering why we're talking about something so long ago. So yeah. So a few pointers on this, and this is another mindset shift that I want you to work on, is to think about how underneath conflict are all of your best ideas and the relationships that help those ideas come alive. And if we can say to ourselves, this is going to be hard, I don't even really want to do this. And once we create that space for that and to be there, we're starting to get somewhere. And this is where we can lose if we aren't able to start these overdue conversations. We can really lose our intellectual capital. That's something I talk about a lot. So there's a lot of things that we know about the mental health components of conflict or difficult conversations, stress, all of those things. But also, just from a practical standpoint, if we aren't talking and somehow my brain and Becky's brain only and our brains only together have the components for a world changing idea, but we've stayed silent or we're in a difficult place, we might lose that idea, and we don't want that. So as we think about this momentum piece, my next tip is to share what you want to accomplish. So often we think that in these hard conversations, we shouldn't show our cards. Have you ever experienced that, Becky, where it seems like you're having a conversation with someone and they're kind of being maybe evasive a little bit, and not really showing you what they're there for?
Oh, for sure. Way too many times. And it's really tough when people don't open up and share openly in that conversation.
Yeah. And I think so here's another thing about this is that if we've been since we've in this particular example, it's long overdue, we have spent a lot of time not having this difficult conversation. And it's okay to say, my goal is to have this conversation because I would like to preserve our relationship. I would like to make sure our team can succeed. So you can actually tell this person what you want to accomplish. And I have sort of an unpopular thing to tell you, and that is, I think actually conflict resolution is often the wrong goal. How many of you are rolling your eyes? I can't see you, but I bet some of you are going, aren't you a conflict resolution practitioner? I am. But the reason that I say resolution is the wrong goal is because y'all want to hide under a table when I say the word conflict. So being able to resolve it is a very advanced skill. And it's a great thing to think about in the future you can get to. But when you're thinking about getting to this long overdue difficult conversation and how to start it, it sets you up possibly for failure if you go into it thinking you're going to achieve some full resolution And it doesn't build your confidence in wanting to have more conversations like this. Yeah. So kind of a wild thing for somebody who loves who works in this stuff to say that you won't really hear me say conflict resolution, because sometimes it's just a goal that sets us up for failure. So
Wow.
don't be afraid to share what you want to accomplish, and bring the focus to making progress instead of replaying tape. So, hey, Becky, this conversation, we've been putting this off for too long. And I know for me, like, I don't even really want to be here. Let's be honest. I'm here because I know if we keep going like this, the success of our team is at stake. And let it drop. Right? Back to that
Yes.
earlier piece of wanting to fill in all the blanks. We don't have to do that. Let Becky say something to me, right? Let her respond. So
Oh my gosh.
any questions on this? Ideas, questions, things you want to know in the chat?
Just want to call
You
out
know,
what
go
Angie
ahead.
had shared in the chat, and just the idea of, I'm going to just read Angie your words because it was perfectly put. So the options when considering whether or not to have the conversation are store it up, give it up, or bring it up.
Oh, I
Ooh,
love that.
that's awesome, Angie.
Yeah, I love that because it gives you actually choices, right? You feel like you have some agency over how you're going to go forward in that. I love it. Thanks, Angie. Any questions about these ideas?
You know, one of the things that really comes to my mind when I think about this, I read an article the other day, and in the article, Interact did a survey, and it looks like I think it was 69%. Yeah, 69% of managers today avoid or they don't like having conversations. They feel uncomfortable with their employees. But yet we know that the number one thing that employees want is they want feedback, and they want to have good direction, good, understand what their role is, right? The very interesting thing in that study was another 37% of them actually said that providing feedback that they know is going to have conflict, they will hold off. So it's interesting that
Oh,
we had this conversation about this, because when I was reading that, I was like, this talks to exactly what Anna has been talking to me about.
yeah. And I think the awkward conversations, especially in that realm of feedback, oh
Yeah.
man, we just it probably makes us a little bit ill to think about having to give people feedback, especially in that management role around something that we have to point out that maybe they're not doing so well, and we need them to be different, but you also want them to feel as though they're contributing to the team. And so there's some ways to do that. And one of them is to just think about how can you share with this person the broader impact that the behavior you need them, or the tasks you need them to do well, would get everyone. So instead of talking about what they're not doing in a deficit, you could say something like, hey, so, when we're not meeting deadlines, it affects the whole team. People might have to pick up work that they weren't expecting to pick up. Some people might be late to something that's important with their kids. But when we're all doing our best work, and we're doing it on schedule, it means that we have more time to innovate or create new ideas. We have more time to connect with each other, and we have more time
So
to
true.
provide quality service to our customer base, or to the people that we work with. And so the person is going to know that they are a person who has not met some deadlines. So as your first attempt at giving feedback, talking about that broader impact can be really powerful.
Ah, such great advice. Such great advice. Well, did we have anything else in the chat, Erin, that we wanted to bring up, or that
Yep.
anybody before we move on?
Christine talks about using the SBI model for potential challenging conversations, calling it the situation, the behavior, and the impact. So S, B, and I.
Oh, that's cool.
Ooh,
I love that.
I like that.
Me too.
Okay.
I want to ask a question just to sort of throw a bone at you too, just because I know we're talking about manager feedback. What about peer-to-peer feedback? Is there any sort of guidepost or insight in terms of how that can be how that should look differently in a situation where in a peer-to-peer versus a manager to subordinate?
Yeah, I think you're touching on something really important here. So, power differences, either real or perceived, can make it even harder to give people feedback. But I'd say it's somewhat of the same, at least for your first try at talking to this person. So, it's really, in order to do my work well, I'm going to give you a really fluffy example, but then I'll give you a more practical one. But so say someone's music on their headphones is too loud next to you, and you need to tell them that you'd really appreciate it if they'd turn it down. But they probably have a pretty good reason for needing to do that too, right? So you can just say, hey, I just want to talk a little bit about our workspace, and we're really close, but we're really close to each other. And sometimes I'm doing really detailed work, and it's hard for me when I get distracted because I have a hard time coming back to the place I was. So when there's noises around me or things happening that distract me a little bit, it's difficult for me to, get my best work done. I know that you probably listen to your music because, right? So thinking the best of the person, taking a stab at what is it that listening to their music loudly does for them, as opposed to telling them or feeling like you have to kind of go, could you please turn your music down, and be sort of sheepish. And the same applies to harder conversations when you're not giving me, I value being making sure that I'm delivering my best work, and it's challenging when I don't have all the information I need from my teammates to do that. I didn't use the word you because you is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous word, because as soon as I say, hey Becky, you aren't giving me the information I need to complete this part of the project, and this has just been happening over and over again. So if you could maybe get better at life, that would be ideal, right? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Now Becky is getting out in her mind her giant scroll of all of the reasons she is reliable and she is good at delivering these things, and she's trying to actually defend her character, because when we hear these things, all we can do, that word you just shuts everything down. So your first attempt at talking to someone, if you can talk without that word, and of course, we don't live in a utopia. Eventually, I'm gonna have to say, hey Becky, you really need to I can't, the data, can you cough up the data so I can do my job? So I'm not at all suggesting there isn't a point where we have to name who it is and what's happening, but there are ways, as we think about how to approach these awkward things, how we can do that.
Yeah, that's so good, Anna. And it takes me to that place of being curious first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that assuming positive intent, because
Mm-hmm.
so often we will assume negative intent by somebody, when really going into every conversation with that assumption of they're trying to hit the same goals as you. They're trying to get a job done just like you. If you can treat it that way and start from there, you start from a place of equal ground, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, now we're going to move on to the very interactive portion of this chat. And this is where the audience is going to carry us home, really. But the first thing we'll do is we did ask people if they had any questions. Now, I'm going to say this up front. It could be very possible that we had some technical issues, but we were only able to find one pre-submitted question for this. And I'm going to go to that pre-submitted question right now. And it's a good one, Anna. It's a really good one. We looked at this the other day. It would be interesting to hear tangible and actionable tips on how to quickly move out of fight or flight and back into thinking mode when conversations get tense. I have a few that I use and love, but would love to hear what other people do.
Oh, this is so good.
Yes.
So, I call this the spiral of catastrophic thinking. And I think, what's really important, and I talked at the beginning about how these skills are actually really strategic. They're, we've coined them soft skills. That gets a bad reputation for sure sometimes. But so when I think about how to get myself out of my body and back into my mind, I think it's about asking yourself a couple questions. The first question is, what would I be able to get if I were better at approaching conflict? What can I get? I'm getting some feedback. Is someone
Yeah.
not muted?
Yep, I'm
Sorry about
checking.
that.
I'm getting people muted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So my hold on, my brain. Let me access my brain again. Okay. All right. So when we think about we've got to know why we're doing it. Why are we showing up in these conversations in the first place? And so the first question to ask yourself is, what would I be able to get from people if I was better at approaching conflict? And the second question is, what would I be able to give them? Right?
Mm.
So these are things like, I'd be able to give understanding, I'd be able to give acknowledgement, I can give, some people want to give things like grace, compassion. I want to give more productivity to people. And what I want to get from people is usually connection, our best ideas, those kinds of things. So now, anywhere I go at any time, I have my word ready. And my word is connection, because I believe on the other side of conflict is connection. So I can say to myself, as soon as I feel that fight or flight get triggered in my body, I can say, okay, I'm working towards connection, or I'm working towards understanding, or team building, or whatever your words might be. But so often, our fear of conflict is really about how we're completely unprepared and we don't know what the other person is going to do or say, or what the consequences might be. So if we have defined for ourselves what we believe is possible on the other side of conflict, then we always have something in our pocket that we can use to bring ourselves back down to earth.
Oh, that was really good. My word is curious. I've
Oh,
really I took hold of that word, I don't know how many years ago, and just that's what I try to lead with into every conversation, is that stay curious. Because
yeah. So,
the second I start to let my activator self dive in,
oh gosh.
um, right? I'm going to go straight to solutioning, and then I leave people out of it, right? So I have to really
Right.
focus on that curious piece. Yes, Aaron, Ted Lasso.
Yeah. So you're
Curious, not
so
judgmental. Walt Whitman, right?
yeah. So for you, Becky, your word or sentence would be, conflict brings curiosity, right? It brings
Yes,
more curiosity. If I can get through these hard conversations, I can keep getting through them. And the rewards for that will show up. And so
yes.
we've got to know that it's rewarding. And in order to do that, we have to have some strategies.
Yeah. I'm curious if anyone listening today uses this strategy or has heard of this strategy, and if you have a word or something that you think of that helps you with this.
Oh
I
my God.
just saw
I
only the start of one, which was look at the other person's nose. And then I don't even need to know what the rest says. I love it.
JC,
Actually,
that's
the,
great.
the whole statement is lovely. It just says it helps you take a step back into your own body. It's a
Yeah,
lovely
I
one.
love it.
Um, I'm gonna just Vanna refers to the word inhale and exhale, like the whole, like the
Ooh,
Yeah.
breathing exercise of it all.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is, I keep thinking about the why behind why we're talking about this topic. And I love that it's Becky and you and leading this, because I often refer to Becky and I in our leadership role of living in a space of what I refer to as constructive conflict. Her and I
yes.
oftentimes see things through different lenses, and through the conversations that we've been able to have, it really feels constructive. So I think of the word constructive as my
I
word when
love
I think
that.
about, it's funny that we're coming up with all these C words. So we need some more, we need some other letters of the alphabet. But that's my word when I think about conflict, and Becky brings it out in me. So I love that she's leading this topic as well. Any
Yeah.
other,
So
any other words people think of when they approach or think about conflict?
I love that, Erin. I love the idea that that you and Becky together have seen it be rewarding to do this.
Yes.
And we have to make paths that get us those rewards. And so often, especially inside organizations, we haven't paved that path at all. So that's wonderful to hear that it's been something that has been fruitful for you.
Yeah. Two other words brought up in the chat. Julie mentioned clarity is kind. I think Julie and I were both at the same event last week and heard that phrase regularly. So Julie, thanks for bringing that one back. And Jackie brings up the word open, which I think is another really good word for this topic as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, as we think about moving on here, this is where we go into completely uncharted waters. So in other words,
Please
we
help
have no
us.
slides, right? In other words, we have no slides. We have no preconceived notion of what's going to come our way. And I've got to applaud Anna because she was the one who came up with this idea of like, I'd really just love to know, what are people thinking? What do they want to know? What's the conflict that they really want to figure out how to resolve?
Oh.
And it was fantastic, the idea that she had, but also a little scary to me because here we go. We're about ready to say, this is all on you that are listening to give us, what are some of those things that you would like to hear from Anna or myself around conflicts or awkward conversations that you have that you'd like to hear more about?
Okay, we've got a couple things that are coming in on the chat. So Ray mentions, regardless of how well you approach the conversation, the response is angry and defensive. Any thoughts on how to contend with angry and defensive response rates?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, it's I think there's something to naming things that are happening. Back to that not being afraid to show your cards. So if someone's angry, saying to whomever is in the conversation in the group, if it's more than two people, that's fine. If it's just two people, that's fine. But this is tense. Because
Call
if
it
it's
out,
tense,
right?
if it's tense for them, it's causing you tension.
Yes.
And sometimes just that naming of what you're observing in the room, and also putting you in that, bringing it to the collective we, right now all of a sudden I've said, wow, this is super tense, and letting it either explode from there, which is still progress, by the way, or start to simmer, but it takes it sometimes in just a different direction, and sometimes that's all we need is just some other direction to go in this conversation.
All right, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
totally
keep
agree.
going with some of the questions so we get these
Yeah.
some good ones coming through. So Melissa asks, I have a manager asks how to end a conversation so that it doesn't drag on and on. Is there a closing statement or closing idea that you can offer, Anna?
Oh, wow, a closing statement. Yeah, I think the part of the thing that we don't do in difficult conversations is treat it like any other meeting. So you can start to sort of summarize if you are, like, if you're in that spiral of kind of replaying things, you can say, so far it's we've talked about how we need resources to do this well, and we've talked about what some of those resources could be, and you've shared what you're willing to do, and I'll share that I will make sure that gets expedited because I'm hearing this is really frustrating. So our next step would be, I'm going to do this and you're going to do this, or we're going to go and find the information we need and come back together. So summarizing with a focus on next action, right? So you're not just saying, so what I feel that this, and I heard that you feel. You're actually driving back to that momentum piece. You're still driving the conversation forward, and you're also wrapping it up. You could also just pretend to be asleep. That, I mean, I want to give you like some options. And
Kelly,
in the world of free will,
Kelly,
if
you
you
like
need
that? You like
to,
that exit strategy, Kelly? I like that one.
whatever it takes sometimes.
Carrie asks, why does it sometimes feel like it's easier for managers to fight or fly off the handle versus having a healthy conflict? Do we find that is there a trend or a reason why we see this happening more frequently?
I think unchecked power. How about that for an easy answer? Yeah, and I think of in being able to communicate and have hard conversations, those power differences are really difficult. The consequences for me bringing something to someone at a higher level of if you're in a hierarchical organization, the stakes are way higher seemingly than they are for that person talking to me. And so doing work inside your organization to get everybody the skills they need to get people to hear, at least for the times in which they're having the difficult conversations, means that everyone can participate fully. And because those cultural norms and expectations have been set, that here's what we expect you to do when conflict comes up or when people are elevated or whatever it is. And I can then have the confidence to go to the person who maybe is at a higher level of leadership than myself because the culture told me to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
other
culture does drive how we handle conflict, doesn't it, Anna? I mean, inside of an organization, it is definitely going to drive how people are responding to any type of conflict. So culture is really key in so many things.
Absolutely.
There's another really good exit strategy. I don't want to lose sight of that just from the earlier question. So as HR pros, and Angie, thank you for sharing this, we have to remember that the exit may be mentioning that we're going to follow up with an email, that documentation also becomes a part of it. And I know we've got a number of HR professionals on today. And so the reminder of the documentation component is also a pretty important one.
Absolutely.
We've got a couple other ones that I don't want to lose Heidi's question. How do we deal with someone showing lack of accountability when it's a barrier to getting momentum? And she specifically calls out finger pointing behavior.
Ooh, yikes. Oh, this is so tough. So the finger pointing behavior leads to lots of other pretty bad behaviors often, right? So when someone isn't taking accountability, I think often it's because they may not actually understand their impact, whether it's behavioral impact or task oriented impact. And I'll give you an example. So, a few years ago, I had a boss, and she called me into her office one day, and she said, "Anna, I need something from you." And I'm a Capricorn only child, and I'm like, "Yes, okay, I'm ready. What do you need me to do?" I'm so excited. And she said, "I just wanted to bring your attention to your energy. When your energy is up, the rest of the team is also up with you. And when your energy is down, the rest of the team is down. And so I just wanted you to think about that for me. Have a great day." Life changing. Did she have to say what I had done and how I'm terrible? And did she have to lay out some sort of threatening or some sort of consequence that was going to happen if I didn't change? She didn't need to. And do you think she ever had to say that to me again? No, because I was able to easily reflect on how I had been a complete tantrum throwing nightmare in that meeting in that morning. I knew exactly what she meant. She didn't even need to provide me the data, right? She didn't even need to give me long form examples. I knew I was being a jerk. And her telling me that my impact was that I influenced the team. That's the kind of person I am. That's the kind of leader I show up as, makes me want to not behave that way. So I think that when someone's pointing a finger elsewhere, they're either not seeing the impact that they have, or they're needing someone sometimes to tell them how they matter, right? So when there's lack of accountability, both of those things could be happening.
Thank you, Anna. I think that's a great great comment. We're getting a whole bunch of chats, so I'm excited about the conversation that's happening here. I want to go to Sarah's because this is one that's more of a self-reflective one. So she talked about in her younger years in an effort to practice self-regulation. She requested a timeout from a conflict-ridden conversation to collect her thoughts and process what she was hearing. In the response from her manager, she got, no, we're having this conversation now. The conversation didn't go well from there, as you can imagine. What could she have done better?
Oh, I love this. So, we all have a way that we show up in conflict where we have I'm a big nerd. I know, shocker. There's a thing called the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. And in this, there's these 5 types of ways that we show up in conflict. And if we knew these about each other, because I believe that another unpopular opinion that conflict is mostly not personal when we're experiencing it, especially in workplaces. But so being perceived as an avoider is what I hear happening here. I hear that your manager perceived this as you avoiding. And what do we think about people who avoid conflict? We think they don't care. And if we're real about that, you'll get all sorts of answers. But the truth is, we need the avoiders to calm down. We need them to go gather more information. We need them to go build their self-esteem if they need to do that. We need them to go talk to a friend and get different perspectives. So what I hear is that person believed that you maybe just wanted to check out because they thought it was, the easy way out, or they thought you just didn't care. So what you could have done differently, I won't say better, because in this case, I think the manager could have also been probably better, is saying your reason for wanting to do this. No, and if they say, well, no, we're doing this now, you can say, that's not going to work for me because. So, and because I don't have all the information, because this is just going to escalate. There's lots of ways that people think very badly about avoiders, and I would like us to love them. Let us now commence loving avoiders. We need them. Otherwise, we would never get anything done or confront anything. So I hope that helps.
That's so great. All right, one last one, and then I want to make sure you guys, I know you've got more things you want to get to here as well, and then if we need to, we can always circle back. Larissa talks about how do you deal with the director that is given power and authority to his assistant over his team. No one has said anything due to the retaliation, and the team is starting to feel it.
Ooh. Amazing. So I hear an opportunity to talk about the sort of the ecosystem of the team, right? All of the different components of the team versus who on the team is causing the disruption or the discomfort or whatever. To be able to say, hey, we'd like to have a broad conversation about how our team is functioning. Here are some things that we've observed. It's difficult because XYZ, of course, leaving the name out for our first pass at trying this on, putting this hat on, to say, here's how the team is currently functioning. But what we really want to talk about is how to get the team to a place where it's functioning better. Here are ideas for what we would like to see. So you are being constructive in this conversation and you're driving that momentum, as I said at the start. So if you come into a conversation talking about only the deficits, you're welcome, Larissa. You are able to talk about what are you actually aspiring to? What is it that's needed to make this team thrive? Instead of course, replaying that tape. And you can give some examples. And think about your audience as you're giving those examples. So think about what would resonate with this person. If you show up with feelings words, is it going to be more difficult for them to take you seriously? Good, whether good, bad, or indifferent, whether we like that or not? Or would it be more outcomes oriented or a mixture of both that would help you get through to them? So that's my advice on that one.
Ooh, good advice. Erin, actually, I think we can keep going on questions right now because we have one nugget that I've asked Anna to leave everyone with. And I think that'll take her a couple of minutes to cover. So honestly, I think
Okay.
we can keep going on some of the questions in the chat. I'm loving this.
Okay. So I have two other ones that I'm seeing come through. Nicole asks, how do you handle a situation where you have had a conversation like this with good intent and the person then tries to hurt the person's reputation? This goes back to that little.
Wow. So I think in these kinds of situations, it's important to talk about the value that your reputation has for you, if it's part of your identity, especially. So if you are a person who really highly values having a certain reputation, a reputation that you're hardworking, or a reputation that you're really team oriented, or whatever it might be, to bring up the conversation again, saying, I know we already talked once about whatever happened. We don't know what, in this mythical situation. And I just, I didn't think that the outcome of that conversation was exactly what I was hoping for. I wanted to share that it's really important to me that that my reputation is important to me, because I have really worked hard at developing the skills of my role. And it took me a really long time. And so it's a value that I hold really highly, that I would like for people to see me as the hardworking person I try to show up as. So is there anything that you wanted to share with me about that? Like any place where you're seeing that I'm not showing up that way? So giving them the opportunity to, one, be called out on maybe this not great behavior, but also to see that you noticed, and for you to understand what it does to you to have people think that of you, and how you want that to be different. But also, maybe they're going to give you an example. It gives them the opportunity to either realize that they're just a gossiping and mean jerk, or maybe they have an actual concern, and this conversation opens up that concern. So I don't know. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Anna. All right. So then the last comment that I'm just going to call it, and it's not so much a question, but it's going back to those lovely exit strategies that was highlighted and questioned earlier, is Kelly says, here's some other smaller exit strategies to use for one-on-one conflicts that I've used for driving quicker closure and moving on to the next steps. 1, I need to grab something off the printer. 2, I need to use a restroom. 3, I have to let my dog out. And 4, share a time limit on the upfront, so that you have the opportunity to step out at a time frame when you don't. Kelly, I love this, and I think it's appropriate as we start to think about how do we sort of navigate the timeline of having these conflict conversations as well.
Yeah, because you can end up having it eat up your entire day, especially when, and usually often, people who aren't part of it get pulled into it with no skills to help solve it. So that's the best part. So yeah, I think I have to get something off the printer is great. And again, just close your eyes. Just try sleeping and see what happens.
Or, look at their nose, like JC said, right?
Look at their nose.
JC said, look at their nose.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. Did we have any others in there, Erin? Was there one from Larissa? Did we cover hers?
We did.
We did. Yeah.
We did. That's right. Okay.
Larissa and I are longtime friends now.
Oh, excellent. That's why I have Erin here to help me keep this straight, because there is a talent to hosting things like this. And Erin is definitely very talented in this space. So, all right.
Fine, Becky, you're too
kind. Move on. If no one has anything, if somebody has one last one that they really want to get in there and try to stump Anna, because we haven't stumped Anna at all.
Or if you don't like my jokes, I guess we can hear about that.
So if not, we are going to go on ahead and we are going to move on. And one of the things that I asked Anna to do was, could you please just leave everyone who attends this with one nugget, or a couple of nuggets that will help them. And so I'm going to move on to some of the tactical approaches and let Anna take it away here with some of her expertise on what those approaches to these awkward conversations could look like.
Okay, thanks so much. So The first thing, I harp on that momentum piece, and I can't drive that home enough for you about what creating momentum does to help us get things done better and create amazing collaborations. The first thing I want you to think about is that somebody participating in an awkward conversation, uh, well, poorly, in an indifferent way, doesn't matter, means that they're invested. So your job is to get curious about what are they invested in. They could be invested in having this conflict be done, right? That's still investment, right? They could be invested in, back to the example that we just had, potentially preserving some part of their reputation. They could be invested in creating a positive work environment, getting the project done as well as they can, and down to the minutia of they could be invested in keeping their paycheck, right? So all of those are just examples, but when you can start to get curious about what they're invested in, this is another tool that you can always have at your side. And it's another way that you can stop that fight or flight that you just jump to, your body takes you there, and then your amygdala is hijacked, and I'm a brain science nerd. All right. So you can have a way that you're always prepared for any conversation that's awkward or difficult, because you can always wonder, what is this person invested in? And then set out to figure it out with them. And there's a lot of work you can do around some really magical questions that can get you there too. So I talked earlier about showing your cards. So we're so afraid to show our vulnerability, or even talk about how we don't want to talk about this, right? But I can say to Becky, hey, Becky, here we are. Yep, sure don't want to do this. You? Right? What that does, it actually takes the focus off this big scary monster that we think that we have to slay, and it brings us together as people in a different way than if I show up all buttoned up but knowing that I'm sweating underneath my suit coat, right? So showing your cards, whether it be some statement around how you're feeling about having the conversation, or that piece of what you want to get out of the conversation. Man, I don't want to be here. This is the worst. I laid in bed awake last night thinking about this. But I'm here because, I really believe I think connection is possible on the other side of this. So now the focus has been brought to something more positive, and people will maybe even ask you, what do you mean brings you connection? What is this? What is this new age? What is this? So those are your first two tips. The second one is identify what information could drive the conversation forward for every single person involved. So much of our conflict that we receive and experience as personal is lack of information, lack of clarity around roles, lack of clarity about what's happening in the organization's future, lack of information received, lack of information about what are the outcomes of this conversation going to be. So finding out what you can do to get that information to the people who are having this tough conversation is pretty straightforward. You can say, what could I share that could drive this conversation forward? And in your roles, especially HR people on this chat, you might have to set those boundaries, right? I'm not able to share what happened with your teammate who was let go, but I will tell you there are no other layoffs being planned, or whatever the container is, because our brains crave certainty. And so if we can create a sense of certainty for people, give them as much information you can with the tools that you have. Or with the confines that you have. And then the last thing is to stay focused on what the positive impact is. Again, Becky, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I know that we've both been avoiding this for so long, and it's not healthy for any of us. And so I know that you're really good at project management, and I'm not so good at it. And so I'm really excited about moving forward to see what we can do together. Yeah. So those are my tactical approaches, and I'll have everyone know this slide up until a few minutes before this started said tactical approaches for approaching, because that's the level of detail of the world that I live in, and that is what it said. But we're not approaching approaches anymore.
I love that you just called yourself out and you didn't need to.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Total transparency.
I know.
That's the way you have to run it. So, well, Anna, this has been fantastic. And I think, when, I was signed up to do this talk, and I knew it was because of my new friend I had, Anna. And I have had the privilege, actually, of going through her HR professional cohort for Conflict Capable. And I will tell you, as an HR practitioner for a few years, I have learned so much in the time that I've spent with her and my cohort. And what I think I love about it is what we miss oftentimes when we're talking about conflict resolution, right? Is we oftentimes forget is where conflict and how we approach conflict, where it really comes from. And we failed to really go to those places. And I have 100% loved being a part of this cohort. And I'm really excited about this next slide. And I'll let you talk about it, Anna, because you are doing something very generous for everyone who joined us today.
Yes. So we have a couple of cohorts coming up. The idea is that these are virtual sessions that you do over the course of 6 weeks, and you're able to be with people from outside your organization and learn alongside them, but also be vulnerable because of that fact, and get some of your challenges workshopped, for lack of a better expression. So it includes 5 weeks of virtual sessions at 75 minutes, and then one of the weeks we're going to start doing group coaching sessions for one of the weeks. But I'd love to have you all join an upcoming cohort, and we're happy to extend $250 off participation with the promo code that's on your screen. And otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat and love to help you with anything that you have coming up.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for being here with me today. I can't imagine having another partner going through this, because you are such a professional in this space, but you're also real. That's what I love about you. You're a real person, Anna, just like me. And you lead from that space of here I am, right? And I think if we all did a little more of that, is fantastic. So as we close out today, a couple of reminders. You will get these slides. And you will also get a copy of the recording, and it's also housed on our website. And this particular one will also be housed on Anna's website. So I want to just leave us with a reminder that we do these monthly. And next month, Kristen Nordling, our founder, and Dr. Amelia Regstad will be covering a topic that I think is near and dear to many of us, which is perfectionism versus excellence. I cannot wait for this talk. It's going to be another really strong talk that we have going into this year, really thinking about self. A lot of the last two that we've done have really been about how do we think about self in these moments. And this one is going to be another one that's really going to bring that out. So with that, and 2 minutes left, we will say goodbye to everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you for
Thanks
joining.
for being here.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Becky. Good work, guys.
Bye.
Bye.